My name is Jack Anderson, and I am cursed. It's a ridiculous curse, reverse effort. The harder I try to slack off, the more spectacular my success. My one and only dream in life is to get fired, go home, and just coast. But the notoriously cold CEO, a woman they call the Ice Queen, somehow manages to decipher some world-shattering business strategy for my every attempt to be useless. She keeps pushing me onto a pedestal, and all I want to say is, for the love of God, please just fire me. I'm Jack Anderson, 23, just another analyst in the investment division at Vance Capital, and I have a superpower. My superpower is screwing up upwards. Basically, the more I want to wreck something, the better it turns out. Conversely, if I actually try to do a good job, it's guaranteed to become a five-alarm disaster. This is my secret. So, I have only one goal in life. Get fired from this company, collect my severance, and go home to a life of glorious mediocrity. To that end, I have been diligently quiet quitting for a solid month. Today, my direct supervisor, Mr. Wallace, dropped a monster of a task on my desk: compile and analyze the data on every single failed investment from the past 3 years and write a report on the root causes. It was a vast, messy, error-prone job, a perfect stage for me to crash and burn. My time had come. I spent half the day just opening the mountain of spreadsheets. Then, I began my carefully orchestrated campaign of self-destruction. A proper data analysis would require cross-referencing by industry, timeline, capital, team members, and a dozen other metrics. Me? I clicked on the column for the project lead's name and hit Sort A to Z. Then, I closed my eyes and mashed out a single dismissive comment. Root cause, personnel, short, sweet, and reeking of apathy and gross negligence. With that, I triumphantly emailed the file to Wallace, fired up a game of Minesweeper, and waited for the pink slip that was surely coming my way this afternoon. An hour passed. No Wallace. 2 hours. The office remained placid. It wasn't until 10 minutes before closing that Wallace came tearing toward my cubicle, his normally exhausted face flushed with a wild, feverish excitement. He grabbed my shoulders, shaking me so hard my teeth rattled. His voice trembled. "Jack, you magnificent bastard. You're a genius." I had so many question marks over my head, they could have formed their own constellation. "Mr. W. Wallace? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb." Wallace jabbed a finger at his computer screen. "I read your analysis. It's a stroke of genius. An absolute masterstroke." I leaned in to look and nearly swallow my tongue. On the screen was my one-click sorted spreadsheet. Wallace, spraying spittle in his excitement, explained, "See, you sorted it by the first letter of the project lead's name. I didn't get it first, but then I saw it. The leads on the failed projects. Their last names are all concentrated in clusters. L, S, W, Z. Do you know what that means?" What could I possibly know? I just knew the alphabet. Before I could answer, he did it for me. I checked. Every single one of them. They were all poached from our top competitor, Apex Investors. Your report, using the simplest, most impossibly elegant method, uncovered a massive secret none of us ever saw. We have corporate spies in our ranks. He paused for breath, then pointed to my one-line comment. Root cause, personnel. His eyes were practically overflowing with reverence. And this comment, straight for the jugular. It identifies the problem without spelling it out, giving the higher-ups room to handle it discreetly. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. My mouth hung open. My entire worldview was crumbling. "You have got to be kidding me." Wallace clapped me on the shoulder, his face glowing with pride. "Jack, I underestimated you. I thought you were just another kid, but you're the one playing the long game. I've already sent your report to the CEO's office. Keep it up. The sky's the limit for you." He walked away, humming, practically skipping. I sat frozen at my desk, watching the digital clock in the corner of my screen tick toward 5. The evening sun cast long shadows through the blinds, striping my face. I didn't get a termination notice. What I got was a company-wide email praising my outstanding contribution and a $3,000 bonus. Why was my life so hard? The next day, I walked into the office with 2 black eyes from a sleepless night. The $3,000 bonus felt like a slap in the face. It left my head spinning. Not only was I not fired, I was now the company's rising star. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt it. All eyes on me. My coworkers' gazes were a complex cocktail of curiosity, admiration, and even a little fear. Morning, Jack. Hey, congrats, man. Even the receptionist, who usually treated me like I was part of the furniture, gave me a dazzling smile. I gave a numb nod and trudged to my desk. A steaming cup of fresh coffee was waiting for me. My best friend and fellow cubicle dweller, Dave Miller, sidled up to me, his expression fawning. He pushed his glasses up his nose and whispered, "Dude, level with me. Are you like some billionaire's kid playing undercover boss or something?" Dave was the only one who knew about my complete lack of ambition, but even he had no idea about the bizarre nature of my curse. I sighed, slumping on my desk. "I just want to get fired, Dave. Is that so hard?" He gave me a look that said, "I get it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge." He patted my back. "It's cool, man. You don't have to keep up the act with me. It's that great hermit hides in the city vibe. A guy like you is above chasing promotions and titles. From now on, I'm your guy. You point, I'll shoot." I saw the glint of hero worship in his eyes and shut mine in despair. Was there any hope left for this world? The atmosphere in the morning meeting was strange. Wallace had saved me a seat right next to him, an honor I had never before received. Running the meeting was the head of Vance Capital herself, the legendary Ice Queen CEO, Catherine Vance. I had only ever seen her once, from a distance, at the annual company party. Today, she wore a flawlessly tailored black pantsuit, her long hair pulled back in a severe bun that showed off her smooth forehead and a neck like a swan's. Her features were individually stunning, but together, they projected an aura of impenetrable coldness. She sat at the head of the table, her gaze sweeping across the room. The temperature seemed to drop a few degrees. When her eyes landed on me, they lingered for about 2 seconds. It was a look of appraisal, of analysis, devoid of any emotion, as if she were studying an inanimate object. Alarm bells went off in my head. This was her. This was the woman who was going to fire me. The agenda moved forward item by item. Finally, they got to the discussion about the corporate spies. Wallace cleared his throat, sang my praises about the genius report one more time, and then changed tack. "The credit for exposing this cancer in our organization goes entirely to Jack Anderson. And now, we'd like to hear Jack's thoughts on how we should proceed." Instantly, every head in the room turned to me. I felt like I was being roasted over an open flame. "Wallace, you traitor! What thought could I have?" My only thought was, fire me and let me go home. Catherine Vance's icy gaze fixed on me, carrying a subtle weight. My mind went blank. My survival instinct, no, my self-sabotage instinct, kicked in, and the words tumbled out of my mouth. "I think we should give them a second chance." The moment I said it, the conference room fell into a dead silence. Wallace's face turned a pale shade of green. Showing mercy to corporate spies? That was career suicide 101. I celebrated internally. This had to be it. They'd see me as some bleeding heart idiot and show me the door. Fire me. Now. Do it. But at the head of the table, for the first time, a flicker of something disturbed the placid surface of Catherine Vance's eyes. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze locked on mine. Her voice was cool and crisp. "Your reasoning?" I decided to go all in and started talking pure nonsense. Well, they were just trying to make a living. And besides, blowing this up into a huge scandal would be bad for the company's reputation. Why don't we send them to spearhead our expansion into the Rust Belt? It's a tough market out there, so it's kind of punishment. And if they actually manage to build something, it would be a way for them to earn back their place. Sending corporate spies to launch a new market initiative, the idea was weapons-grade stupid. I could practically see the thought bubble over Wallace's head. We're so fired. I sat back down, satisfied, ready to embrace the end of my professional career. You could have heard a pin drop. After a long moment, Catherine's cool voice broke the silence. This time, it held a note of something I couldn't quite decipher. "Interesting." She tapped the table once, a gesture of finality. "We'll do as Jack says." Meeting adjourned. With that, she stood up and, under the astonished gaze of everyone in the room, walked directly toward me. She stopped right in front of my chair. Her height created an invisible pressure. A faint, cool, clean scent drifted into my nostrils. My office. Now, the CEO's office was on the top floor. Through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, The entire city sprawled out in a glittering panorama. I stood awkwardly in front of a giant mahogany desk, feeling like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. Catherine Vance sat across from me, her fingers steepled, those sharp eyes fixed on me. Jack Anderson, she began, her tone unreadable. Present, I said, standing up a little straighter. Why did you make that recommendation? Huh, I didn't follow. Sending those men to the Rust Belt, she clarified. Here it comes. The interrogation. I took a deep breath and stuck to my script of self-destruction. I just believe in giving people a second chance. Live and let live. The corner of Catherine's mouth seemed to twitch, almost imperceptibly. Is that all? That's all, I said with firm conviction. She fell silent. The only sound in the office was the low hum of the air conditioning. Every second stretched into an eternity. I could feel a cold sweat trickling down my forehead. Just as I thought the 5 most beautiful words in the English language, "You're fired, get out," were about to be spoken, she pulled a file from her drawer and slid it across the desk toward me. This is a corporate social responsibility initiative the company has had on the back burner for a while. It's about funding and building a community center and school in an underserved community in West Virginia. We never had the right person to lead it. I glanced down. The title on the folder, The Phoenix Project, seemed to mock me. A knot of dread formed in my stomach. I had a very bad feeling about this. The project is yours now, Catherine said, her voice leaving no room for argument. My head snapped up, my face a mask of disbelief. Me? No way, Ms. Vance. I can't. I have no experience. Your Mercy is a perfect fit for this project, she said flatly. And as for your idea of sending those men to a new territory, excellent. They can go with you to West Virginia and build that school as a way to atone. If they don't get it built, they don't come back. I was completely dumbfounded. What was this? A triple play. Not only was she not firing me, she was promoting me to project manager and turning my idiotic, off-the-cuff remark into actual company policy. Catherine saw my stunned expression and seemed to misinterpret it. She stood and walked to the window, her back to me. Jack, I've seen your resume. State school, average grades. You've been here a year, performance mediocre at best. But that report and your suggestion in the meeting today, those are not the actions of a mediocre person. She turned around, her eyes dark and intense. You suggested sending them to West Virginia. On the surface, it looks like you're letting them off easy. In reality, you've placed them under a microscope, isolated from their contacts and resources. In a place where they know no one, they have to rely completely on the company. You're making them build a school, squeezing the last ounce of value from them, while simultaneously putting them through a kind of spiritual punishment. You're forcing them to atone for their sins in a way that makes it impossible for them to ever betray the company again. It was a brilliant gambit. You solved an internal security threat, protected the company's reputation, and pushed a PR-friendly community project forward all in one move. A 3-for-1 special. Jack, you are far more formidable than I imagined. I listened to her analysis, my jaw hanging open so wide I could have fit a baseball in it. I was literally just making stuff up. Ms. Vance, you've really misunderstood. No need to explain. Catherine cut me off. I don't care why you were hiding your talents before. From now on, I need them. This project is your audition. Do it well, and I'll give you what you want. Fail. She didn't finish the sentence, but her glacial stare said it all. I walked out of the CEO's office like a zombie, clutching the file for the Phoenix Project. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Dave immediately ran up to me, his face alight with gossip and excitement. Jack, so? Did she give you a promotion? A huge raise? Put you in charge of something big? I looked at him, tears welling in my eyes. She's sending me to West Virginia to build a school. Dave blinked. Then a look of profound understanding dawned on his face. He gave me a thumbs up. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. She's sending you out to the field to get some grassroots experience. She's grooming you to take over the company. Dude, this is the classic heir apparent goes undercover storyline. My vision went black. I nearly passed out. Please, for the love of all that is holy, stop psychoanalyzing me. The plan to build a school in West Virginia was fast-tracked. I was the project manager, leading a team of the very corporate spies I had inadvertently exposed. It was, by any measure, the weirdest team ever assembled. Before we left, the company held a small send-off meeting for us. My departmental rival, Kevin Price, gave me a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Congratulations, Jack. Running your own show at such a young age. I hear the weather's rough out there. Try to take care of yourself." Kevin had seen me as a threat ever since my stroke of genius with the report. The glee in his voice was palpable. I wished he would say more, maybe question my abilities in public, start a fight, and get me kicked off the project. But before I could open my mouth to add fuel to the fire, Dave stepped in front of me like a bodyguard. "What do you know, Kevin? Jack's on his way to do something that matters. A petty little office politician like you could never understand his ambition." Dave was practically vibrating with righteous indignation. Kevin's face turned purple. "You." I quickly pulled Dave back, terrified he was going to ruin my chance to fail. Or rather, to succeed. At the end of the meeting, Catherine Vance appeared. She was in her usual sharp suit, silent, standing in a corner. When the meeting broke up, she called me over. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Yes, Ms. Vance. More or less," I mumbled. "Remember your mission." Her eyes, sharp and analytical, bored into me. "I don't want any surprises." I screamed internally. Surprises are my only hope. The moment the plane door opened, a wave of hot, dusty air hit me in the face. Before us was an endless stretch of tired earth and a few scattered, low-slung houses. This was our destination, Blackwater Creek. The former spies on my team looked like they'd lost the will to live. They were city guys, used to comfort and convenience. This was another planet. The town mayor, a man with sun-beaten skin and a face like a roadmap of wrinkles, came to greet us. He grabbed my hand, too emotional to form a complete sentence. "Welcome. Welcome. Our kids. They finally have some hope." Seeing the tears in his cloudy eyes, my resolve to screw everything up wavered for the first time. After we settled in, I called the first project meeting. Meeting was a generous term. We were huddled around a peeling table in the dilapidated town hall. I looked at my team of dejected elites, cleared my throat, and prepared to launch phase one of my master plan for failure. "All right, everyone. The main point of this trip is to get a feel for the place. Building the school, that's not urgent. The first priority is for everyone to acclimate and get into the right mindset." I made it sound as casual as possible, hoping they'd think I was just leading a company-paid vacation. Sure enough, their eyes lit up. Only one of them, a middle-aged man named Mark Taylor, who had been the highest ranking among the spies, frowned at me but said nothing. So I continued, "Here's the plan. For the first week, we do nothing. Just walk around the town, get the lay of the land, get to know the locals. We'll start work in a week." Even in my own ears, it sounded insane. A critical construction project, and I was telling everyone to take a week off? If word of this got back to headquarters, Catherine Vance would have my hide. I gloated inwardly, practically seeing the termination email drafting itself in the clouds. But then, Mark Taylor spoke up. "I disagree." His voice was hoarse, but firm. I blinked. "Why?" Mark looked at me, his eyes filled with a complex emotion. "Mr. Anderson, we're here to atone, not to go on vacation. If you're trying to humiliate us with this charade, there's no need." I was speechless. "Humiliate you?" I was genuinely trying to be lazy. Before I could explain, another team member shot to his feet. "He's right. We made a mistake, but we're not useless. Mr. Anderson, you don't have to test us. We know what we have to do. Just give us our orders." "Yeah, give us our orders." The others joined in, a chorus of indignant voices. They looked like I had just insulted their mothers. I stared at this suddenly energized group of convicts and was completely lost. This wasn't in the script. Weren't you guys supposed to joyfully accept my slacker proposal, join me in doing nothing, and get us all fired? Why were you reacting like this? Baffled, I stammered. That's not what I meant. I just think, measure twice, cut once." "We get it." Mark cut me off, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. "Mr. Anderson, you want us to use this week of observation to truly integrate, to understand the meaning of this project instead of treating it like just another cold assignment. You're giving us a chance to become better men. We understand your intentions." "Thank you." My jaw dropped. I couldn't say a word. I understood. I finally understood everything. The most terrifying thing in the world isn't having a curse of reverse effort. It's being surrounded by a team whose ability to read way too much into things is off the charts. My slacking for a week plan went into effect, but in a way I could never have anticipated. My team's enthusiasm was the polar opposite of what I'd intended. Mark Taylor and the others were like men possessed. They were up before dawn every day, inspecting the town. They walked around with notepads, asking questions. Ma'am, how many people in your family? Is a long walk to school for the kids? Sir, where does the town get its water? Is it reliable? Hey there, little guy. What color would you want your classroom to be? They took my directive to get to know the locals to a whole new level. And me, the project manager, my job consisted of lying on the cot the town hall had provided for me and contemplating the meaning of existence. Whenever I ventured out, I'd see them give me this knowing look as if to say, there he goes, our wise leader, silently observing our every move with his all-seeing eyes. I was just going to the bathroom. A week later, Mark came to me with a thick stack of papers. It was a detailed research report on Blackwater Creek's geography, demographics, economy, educational resources. They had even documented the name of every dog in town. Mr. Anderson, this is what we've accomplished this week. Mark handed me the report, his eyes shining with a mix of pride and apprehension. We believe the original plan from headquarters needs some adjustments. I took the report and flipped through it casually. Oh, tell me more, I said, feigning interest while mentally plotting how to torpedo this project. The original plan was to build the school on that empty lot west of town. But after surveying the area, we found that the land is low-lying and prone to flooding during the rainy season. It's also too far from most of the families. Mark pointed to a hand-drawn map. We think the best location is on the east side of town, where that old, abandoned brickyard is. The ground is higher, the view is better, and it's centrally located. The only downside is that demolishing the old structure and prepping the foundation will add a significant cost to the budget. A bigger budget. This was fantastic news. Nothing makes executives angrier than going over budget. My heart leaped. This was my chance. I cleared my throat, adopting the tone of a rigid bureaucrat. Absolutely not. The plan from headquarters was approved by experts. We can't just change it on a whim. Who's going to be responsible for the cost overruns? My goal was to crush their initiative with red tape and apathy, hopefully creating some internal conflict. Mark and the others looked crestfallen. But Mr. Anderson, this is for the children. The children don't sign the checks. I cut him off, my tone harsh. We stick to the original plan. This discussion is over. I tossed the report on the table and turned my back on them, projecting an aura of cold, unreasonable authority. Back in my room, I rubbed my hands together with glee, defying my team, being rigidly authoritarian, ignoring practical realities, and forcing a flawed plan forward. With a combo like that, once the news of my failure reached headquarters, Catherine Vance would tear me to shreds. I could almost taste the sweet freedom of unemployment. But I was once again too naive. The next morning, I was woken by a loud commotion. I opened my door to see Mark and the team, leading a group of townspeople armed with shovels and pickaxes, working furiously at the abandoned brickyard on the east side of town. They were demolishing it themselves? I ran over and grabbed Mark, who was hauling a pile of bricks. What are you doing? I told you. We're sticking to the original plan. Mark wiped the sweat from his brow and gave me a sheepish grin. Mr. Anderson, we thought about what you said. You're right. We can't go over budget. So, we're doing the demolition and foundation work ourselves. It won't cost the company a dime. He gestured to the energetic townspeople. As soon as they heard it was to build a school for their kids, they all volunteered to help. I looked at the bustling scene, at the smiling faces of the locals and my convict employees, and the world started to spin. Why? Why does every single one of my attempts at self-destruction turn into an inspiring anthem of unity and perseverance? Just then, my satellite phone rang. It was Catherine Vance. I walked to a quiet corner, my stomach churning, and answered. How is the project progressing? Her voice was as cool and distant as ever. Our reporting in, Ms. Vance. Everything is on schedule. I forced myself to say. I heard. Was that a hint of approval in her voice? I heard you vetoed their proposal to change the building site, then used reverse psychology to motivate them to solve the budget problem by doing the demolition themselves. Jack, you have a gift for managing people. I was speechless. I didn't. That's not what happened. No need for false modesty, she said, as if reading my mind. Mark Taylor called and gave me a full report. He said that while you appear strict on the surface, your methods are designed to help them find self-worth and wash away their past shame through their own labor. They're all very grateful to you. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, utterly defeated. Mark Taylor, you Boy Scout, you've betrayed the cause. Keep up the good work, Catherine said finally. Don't disappoint me. The line went dead. I stood in the swirling dust, holding the phone, my world in shambles. In the distance, the demolition of the old brickyard continued, accompanied by the sounds of cheerful, determined work. Once again, against my will, I'd become a brilliant leader. This was no way to live. With the entire town pitching in, the old brickyard was cleared in just 3 days. Staring at the newly leveled foundation, I felt nothing but a profound desire to cry. Next up was the actual construction. I learned my lesson. My previous attempts at failure were too subtle. This time, I had to be direct. The construction crew, hired by headquarters, was professional and efficient. The blueprints were approved. If I just let things proceed, a beautiful new school would be standing here in no time. I couldn't let that happen. On the first day of construction, I called the foreman and my team into the office. I spread the blueprints on the table. This part right here, I said, pointing I don't like it. Everyone gathered around. The foreman, a seasoned pro with decades of experience, looked at it. Mr. Anderson, that's a load-bearing wall. What's the problem? It's been calculated for maximum structural integrity. It's perfectly safe. Too safe, I said, shaking my head with a grave expression. Safety implies conservatism. We're not just building a school. We're innovating. We need to be bold. I took a pen and drew a thick, dramatic line through the wall on the blueprint. This wall. Get rid of it. A collective gasp went through the room. The foreman's eyes nearly bulged out of his head. Mr. Anderson, you can't be serious. That's a load-bearing wall. If you take that out, the entire building will be structurally unsound. He's right, sir. That's too dangerous. Mark and the others chimed in. This was exactly the reaction I wanted. I wanted to be the reckless, arrogant boss who ignored safety regulations. If anything goes wrong, I'll take full responsibility, I said, slamming the pen down. I'm the project manager. What I say goes. Make the change. The foreman's face was beet red. He pointed a trembling finger at the blueprint. This violates every building code in the book. I can't do it. You're playing with the lives of children. If you won't do it, I'll find someone who will, I said, staring him down. If you can't handle the job, you and your crew can pack up and leave right now. I was calling his bluff. I was betting he wouldn't risk his professional reputation on my insane order. Once the construction crew walked out, the project would be delayed, and it would be all my fault. The foreman was shaking with rage. He grabbed the blueprints and threw them on the table. You're crazy. Absolutely insane. I quit. He spun on his heel and stormed toward the door. My heart soared. Success. But just as he was about to step outside, a quiet voice spoke up. It was one of Mark's junior guys, a quiet kid named Leo who rarely spoke. Wait a second. Leo adjusted his glasses, walked over to the blueprints, and stared at them for a long time. Then he pulled out his laptop and started typing furiously. All eyes were on him. After about 10 minutes, Leo looked up, his face flushed, a strange light in his eyes. I think I get it. He pointed to the wall I had crossed out. Mr. Anderson isn't just removing a load-bearing wall. He's proposing we switch from a traditional masonry structure to a frame shear wall system. I blinked. A what system? Leo wasn't looking at me. He was excitedly explaining to the foreman. Sir, look, by removing this central wall, he's implicitly suggesting we reinforce the corner nodes with structural columns. That way, the walls themselves are no longer the primary load-bearing elements. They become simple partitions. This frame shear wall system has a much higher seismic rating than traditional masonry. That's critical in this part of the country. He grew more animated. Plus, without fixed load-bearing walls, The interior spaces can be more flexible and open, which means better natural light for the classrooms. Mr. Anderson, you've thought of everything. The foreman was stunned. He snatched Leo's laptop, studied the model on the screen, and his expression shifted from anger to confusion, to shock, and finally, to profound respect. He slapped his thigh. I see it. I see it all now. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. A simple change that results in a massive upgrade to both structure and function. Mr. Anderson, I apologize for my unprofessional outburst. And then, to my utter horror, he bowed deeply to me. I stood frozen, a statue of disbelief. I'm not. I really just wanted to knock down a wall and collapse the whole project. What is wrong with you people? Are your brains running on some kind of supercomputer? Why do you always manage to interpret my idiotic actions as strokes of profound genius? My plan for self-destruction had, once again, in a way I could not possibly comprehend, been transformed into a shining example of brilliant leadership. The construction crew didn't leave. Instead, they threw themselves into their work with the fervor of religious converts. They looked at me like I was the Frank Lloyd Wright of West Virginia. I was emotionally exhausted. Thanks to the crew's superhuman efforts, the school's main structure was completed in record time. Looking at the beautiful, sturdy frame of the new building, I felt only despair. All my carefully laid plans for failure had backfired spectacularly. I was starting to have an existential crisis. Was I destined for greatness? No, I refused to believe it. All I wanted was to be a bum. That night, I sat alone on a pile of scrap lumber, drinking and staring at the moon. The mayor had given me a jar of his homemade moonshine. It went down like fire. I needed it to numb the pain of my repeated, accidental successes. After a few glasses, the world started to tilt. A wave of self-pity washed over me. I yelled out into the empty darkness. Why? Why can't I just get fired? I don't want to be a hero. I don't want to be a leader. I'm a screw-up. I want to go home. Catherine Vance. You cold, calculating woman. Why won't you believe me? I'm just a slacker who wants to be left alone. I was shouting and crying a blubbering mess. The alcohol was hitting hard. Everything was a blur. Through my watery eyes, I saw a dark figure walking toward me. The figure grew closer. It was tall, slender, and carried a familiar, cool scent. I squinted, trying to focus. See, Catherine, I had to be hallucinating. What would she be doing in a godforsaken place like this? I chuckled stupidly and reached out, trying to touch the face in my vision. You're actually pretty beautiful. Just too cold. No heart. Before my hand could make contact, it was caught by a cool, firm grip. The touch was too real to be a hallucination. A jolt went through me, sobering me up instantly. There, bathed in moonlight, was Catherine Vance's flawless face, just inches from mine. She wore her usual icy expression, but her eyes held a complex emotion I couldn't read. You're drunk, she said. I froze solid. She was really here. When did she arrive? How much of my drunken tirade did she hear? It was over. It was all over. I had just called my CEO a cold-hearted woman to her face. My career was finally, truly, definitively finished. At that thought, I felt not fear, but a wave of pure, unadulterated joy. Happiness had come so suddenly. Fueled by liquid courage, I tightened my grip on her hand. Ms. Vance, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said those things behind your back. I'm a terrible person. Fire me. Please, I'm begging you. Catherine was taken aback by my sudden plea. She tried to pull her hand away, but I held on with surprising strength. Let go, she said, her voice colder than ever. I won't. Not until you promise to fire me. I was acting like a child. We struggled there, on the scrap pile, a ridiculous tug of war. Just then, Mark Taylor and the construction foreman, making their nightly rounds, came upon us. Who's there? The beam of their flashlight landed squarely on us. The air froze. What did they see? They saw me, their drunk and disorderly project manager, clinging desperately to the hand of their untouchable Ice Queen CEO, who had a look of fury and was at a blush. Mark's and the foreman's jaws dropped. The flashlight fell from their hands with a clatter. We didn't see anything. They turned in unison and sprinted away into the darkness as if they'd seen a ghost. Me, Catherine, She finally ripped her hand from my grasp. The eternal frost on her face seemed to have cracked. Jack Anderson. She ground out my name through clenched teeth. I looked up at her and gave her my biggest, brightest smile. Don't worry, Miss Vance. I'll be packed and gone by morning. This time it had to work, right? I woke up the next morning with a splitting headache. A souvenir from the moonshine. But I was in a great mood. I hummed to myself as I packed my meager belongings. Last night's performance, while fueled by poor judgment, was surely effective. Harassing the CEO in public? That was grounds for dismissal 100 times over. Goodbye, Blackwater Creek. Goodbye, my overthinking, overachieving team. Hello, sweet unemployment. Just as I was stuffing my last t-shirt into my duffel bag, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Mark Taylor, his face grim. Behind him stood the rest of the team. The way they were looking at me was even more complicated than the night before. Mr. Anderson, Mark began, his voice low. We need to talk to you. I waved a dismissive hand. No need. I get it. I'm out of here. You guys keep up the good work. Don't let Ms. Vance down. But Mark shook his head. Then, he did something incredible. He bowed deeply to me. Mr. Anderson, we're going to talk to Ms. Vance. We're going to plead your case. I was utterly confused. We all know you only did what you did. For us, Mark declared, his face a mask of tragic nobility. My brain blue-screened again. What was he talking about now? Another team member, a guy named Leo, chimed in. We saw everything. You and Ms. Vance on the construction site. The argument. We misunderstood at first, but then we figured it out. You must have realized that no matter how well we performed, there would always be a cloud of suspicion over us back at headquarters. So, to clear the way for our future, you decided to sacrifice your own reputation, to publicly disgrace yourself, to show Ms. Vance how committed you were to us. You were telling her that you would take all the blame, all the responsibility for us, even if it meant making an enemy of her. Mr. Anderson, we will never forget this. Thank you. And then all of them, in unison, bowed. I stood there dumbfounded, my duffel bag still in hand. My soul felt like it had left my body. Publicly disgrace myself. Sacrifice my reputation. I was just drunk and trying to get fired. You morons. But do your brains even work? Can't you think like normal people for 1 second? I opened my mouth to explain, but I knew that any words I said would be useless against the impenetrable fortress of their insane logic. And no, that's not. I managed to choke out. You don't have to say a thing, sir. We understand, Mark said, his expression one of pure loyalty. Don't worry. We've already co-signed a petition to Ms. Vance. We're willing to trade all our future accomplishments for the company's forgiveness of your actions. I looked at their determined, ride-or-die faces, and my vision went black. I fell backward onto my cot. It wasn't because I was moved. It was because I was so unbelievably frustrated. When I came to, I was lying on the cot, and Catherine Vance was sitting in a chair beside me. She had changed out of her power suit and was wearing a simple white shirt and jeans. It softened her edges, made her look less severe. She was peeling an apple, her movements slow and precise. Sunlight streamed through the window, creating a golden halo around her. For a split second, I thought that maybe this cold woman wasn't so bad after all. You're awake? She asked without looking up, her voice still cool. Yeah, I croaked, trying to sit up. Don't move, she said, gently pushing me back down. The doctor said you have alcohol poisoning and emotional exhaustion. You need to rest. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, a storm of emotions churning inside me. Ms. Vance, about last night. I know all about it. She cut me off, still working on the apple. Mark and his team gave me their petition. My heart sank. So you're going to... Do you really think a petition would change my mind? She countered. A spark of hope ignited within me. That's it. That's the cold, ruthless CEO I know and want to be fired by. An employee who publicly disrespects and harasses a superior should, according to company policy, be terminated immediately. This is it. This is it. I clenched my fists in excitement. Catherine finished peeling the apple. She cut it into small slices, speared one with a toothpick, and held it to my lips. But, she said, changing direction, my heart, which had been soaring, plummeted back to earth. But I also saw another side of you. She looked at me then, her expression more serious than I had ever seen it. I heard what you were shouting that night. My face turned beet red. You said you wanted to be a failure, that you wanted to go home and coast. It was all out in the open now. I decided to just own it. That's right. That's all I've ever wanted. Every single thing I've done has been an attempt to get fired. Now that you know, you can let me go, right? I expected her to be angry, to be disgusted by my lack of ambition. Instead, she just watched me silently, then pushed the apple slice a little closer. Eat. I don't know why, but on some strange impulse, I opened my mouth and ate the apple. It was sweet. Jack, she said, pulling her hand back. Do you know why I came to Blackwater Creek? I shook my head. Because headquarters received an anonymous tip. My heart skipped a beat. A tip? Yes. A letter accusing you of authoritarianism, of altering blueprints against safety protocols, of forming a clique with your subordinates to undermine the company. The letter was from Kevin Price. Kevin? My rival. It all made sense. He was trying to get me fired. So I came to investigate. But what I found was a school being built ahead of schedule and to a higher standard, a team of employees whose entire outlook you had transformed, and a town that treats you like family. Catherine stood and walked to the window. Jack, your words say you want to be a slacker, but your actions, your subconscious, they do the most correct, the most brilliant things. Your so-called reverse effort. Maybe it isn't a curse at all. She turned, her eyes burning with an intensity I'd never seen before. Maybe it's your real gift. A gift for turning garbage into gold that even you don't recognize. So, she said, enunciating each word, I'm not going to fire you. Not only am I not firing you, I'm giving you a position you can't refuse. Starting today, you are my chief special advisor. You'll report directly to me when we get back to headquarters. In that moment, I felt my world collapse. In the end, I was brought back to headquarters. As a returning hero, the Blackwater Creek School project, thanks to my series of accidental masterstrokes, was finished a third ahead of schedule and came in 20% under budget, all while exceeding every quality standard. The craziest part? Mark Taylor and the other ex-spies, after their re-education through labor, returned as changed men. They requested transfers to the company's most challenging divisions and became model employees. And me, the man who had orchestrated all these miracles, became a legend at Vance Capital. I was appointed Chief Special Advisor, a title no one had ever heard of. My office was right next to Catherine's, separated only by a frosted glass door. My job description was insultingly simple. I had no job description. Catherine's only directive to me was, just be yourself. She seemed to have completely bought into her theory about my subconscious genius, believing that if she just let me exist in a state of pure, unadulterated laziness, I would somehow conjure up endless streams of inspiration and miracles for the company. So, my daily routine became, morning, play video games on the company's top-of-the-line computer. Noon, enjoy a complimentary 5-star meal at the executive dining room. Afternoon, take a nap in my $10,000 ergonomic chair. Occasionally, Catherine would drag me into a meeting, seating me in a corner to absorb inspiration. I spent the entire time daydreaming about what to have for dinner. To an outsider, it was a dream job. Only I knew the sweet agony of this gilded cage. I was further than ever from my dream of getting fired. My friend Dave no longer looked at me with admiration. It was now pure awe. Dude, you've transcended the mortal plane. You've achieved the highest state of Zen management. Leadership through inaction. It looks like you're just gaming, but in reality, you have your finger on the pulse of the entire company. I just waved a tired hand at him, too exhausted to even argue. As for my nemesis, Kevin Price, he was completely broken. His snitch letter, far from taking me down, had become just another piece of evidence of my strategic brilliance. Rumor had it that Catherine, in a board meeting, held up his letter and said coolly, "The jealousy of the mediocre is the highest praise for the brilliant." Now, Kevin avoids me like the plague, his eyes filled with terror whenever we cross paths. One afternoon, I was just waking up from my nap when Catherine came in my office. She was holding a file. There's an important negotiation in an hour. We're acquiring a new AI startup, Singularity. You're coming with me. I yawned. I'm not going. I'll just screw it up. This was the truth. I was well aware of my curse's try hard, fail hard clause. But Catherine just placed a file on my desk. You're going. All you have to do is sit there. Don't say a word. Don't do a thing. It seemed she had fully accepted my role as some kind of corporate good luck charm. I couldn't argue, so I followed her to her car. The negotiation was at a private club downtown. The founder of Singularity was a young guy named Leo Zhou. He wore thin-rimmed glasses and had a polite demeanor, but his eyes held a glint of arrogance he couldn't quite hide. From the start, the talks were deadlocked. Zhou was incredibly confident in his tech, and the acquisition price he was demanding was far higher than Vance Capital's valuation. Catherine's team argued their points, but they were getting nowhere. I sat in a corner next to Catherine, bored out of my skull. This kind of high-level business talk was more foreign to me than ancient Greek. I started to get drowsy. To stay awake, I fished a hard candy out of my pocket, unwrapped it, and popped it in my mouth. The sweet flavor helped a little. Absently, I started fiddling with the small, crinkly wrapper. I folded it into a tiny paper airplane. Then I unfolded it and refolded it into a paper crane. Then I unfolded it again, thought for a moment, and folded it into a little star. I was completely absorbed in my task, oblivious to the rising tension at the negotiation table. Suddenly, Leo Zhou, who had been a picture of confidence, went pale. His gaze was fixed, laser-like, on the tiny paper star in my hand. His breathing grew ragged. Everyone at the table noticed his strange behavior and followed his gaze to me. Catherine frowned. I looked down at the star in my hand, confused. It was just a normal paper star. What was the big deal? Zhou shot to his feet, pointing a trembling finger at me. Who are you? I looked up, bewildered. Me? I'm Jack Anderson. No. Zhou was getting agitated. The way you folded that star, that specific technique. Are you origami master? I was flabbergasted. Origami master? I learned how to do this from the girl next door when I was 10. Before I could respond, Zhou rushed over, snatched the star from my hand, and examined it from every angle. It's the same method, the unique finishing fold. Only one person in the world does it like this. He looked up at me, his eyes shining with the light of a true believer. Master, I've finally found you. I'm your biggest fan. I only got into algorithmic research because I saw your tutorial for folding a Klein bottle on the International Origami Forum years ago. You're the person who inspired my entire career. The entire room was silent. Catherine's negotiation team stared, their mouths agape. Even Catherine's stoic expression had cracked. And me? I was in shock. International Origami Forum. A Klein bottle. When had I ever done that? I racked my brain, and a faint memory surfaced from the depths. It must have been in college. I was trying to avoid studying for a final, so I spent an entire night trying to fold a mathematically impossible Klein bottle from a single sheet of paper. I messed around with it for hours, failed miserably, and then, as a joke, I posted a series of pictures of my failed steps on some obscure international forum with the title An Impossible Task. Then I went to bed. I failed that final, by the way. Could that be what he was talking about? Zhou was still gushing. Master, do you realize? Your tutorial, which you presented as a failure, was filled with such brilliant topological logic. It was a revelation. The core algorithm for my company, the infinite fold algorithm, was inspired by that very post. I've always wanted to find you, to thank you in person. I can't believe I'm meeting you here. It must be fate. He turned, grabbed the contract from the table, and signed his name with a flourish. He then presented the signed contract to Catherine with both hands, his demeanor utterly humble. Ms. Vance, it would be an honor. The price is your price. I have only one condition. He turned back to me, his eyes burning with fervent hope. I wish to have the opportunity to learn from the master from time to time. Catherine took the contract, glanced at it, then looked at me. Her expression was a universe of confusion. A negotiation that should have cost hundreds of millions of dollars and weeks of work was concluded in minutes, all because I folded a candy wrapper into a star out of boredom. And we got it at a discount. The ride back to the office was dead silent. I huddled in my corner of the back seat, afraid to look at Catherine. I was beginning to think my life was no longer governed by the laws of physics. After a long time, Catherine finally spoke, her voice laced with a weariness I'd never heard before. Jack! Here, how many other secret identities do you have? I wanted to cry. Ms. Vance, I honestly have no idea. After the Origami Master incident, my status at the company transcended legend and entered the realm of myth. There were now 3 dominant theories about me circulating through the office grapevine. Theory 1. I was the heir to a secret, powerful family, and my job at Vance Capital was just a way to kill time and vet potential business partners for my clan. Theory 2. I was a sort of enlightened being, a master of strange and esoteric arts, who viewed the world of business as a trivial game. Theory 3. I was Catherine Vance's secretly trained ultimate weapon, her ace in the hole for crushing any and all commercial obstacles. Dave was no longer content to be just my sidekick. He had started the Jack Anderson Study Group, where he and other members would meet to analyze my every word and action, trying to glean the secrets of success. I heard that a crumpled up piece of scratch paper I'd thrown in the trash was retrieved, copied, and circulated among them as a sacred text containing profound market insights. I gave up. I completely gave up. Let the world burn. I was tired. I continued my routine. Game at work, go home. Catherine seemed to get used to my presence, though she still sometimes looked at me like I was a bizarre new species of animal she was studying. She stopped forcing me to attend meetings. Instead, she would just silently place the files for her most difficult cases on my desk. She wouldn't say a word. Just leave them there. And I, with equal and unspoken understanding, would not even glance at them. But, strangely, those cases always seemed to solve themselves through a series of bizarre coincidences. There was an overseas mining acquisition that was stalled because of local political issues. One day, I ate too much at lunch and was pacing around my office to walk it off. I accidentally knocked over the cleaning lady's mop bucket. Water splashed across a geological survey map, soaking a previously ignored section. The next day, news broke that a massive, rich new mineral deposit had been discovered in that very section. Because we had the inside information, Vance Capital swooped in and secured the rights for a fraction of the cost. Then there was a battle with a tech giant over a crucial web portal. They were hitting us hard, and we were losing. That day, I lost a dozen straight rounds in my game and, in a fit of frustration, slammed my fist on my keyboard. A keycap flew off, sailed through the air, and bonked our chief technology officer on the head in the next office. The impact apparently triggered a flash of inspiration. He came up with a brilliant reverse traffic flow strategy that turned the tide of the battle overnight. Things like this kept happening. Eventually, a consensus formed throughout the company. As long as Jack Anderson was around, no problem was unsolvable. I had become the company's anchor, a lazy, game-playing, nap-taking anchor. One day, Catherine's executive assistant, a sharp, no-nonsense woman, rushed into her office. "Ms. Vance, it's an emergency. Apex Investors has launched a hostile takeover." I had my headphones on, but I heard her. Apex Investors, our old rival, the ones who had planted the spies. They've partnered with several offshore funds and are buying up our stock on the open market. Our share price is fluctuating wildly. If this continues, it could be catastrophic, the assistant said, her voice tight with panic. I saw Catherine's face grow grave in a way I had never seen before. She immediately called an emergency meeting with all senior executives. As the company mascot, I was summoned as well. The atmosphere in the boardroom was suffocating. Everyone wore a grim expression. Apex's attack was sudden, aggressive, and well-funded. It was clearly a premeditated strike. Vance Capital was a major player, but even we were struggling to fend off this kind of coordinated financial assault. Catherine sat at the head of the table, silent, her fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the polished wood. I could feel her tension. I sighed. As much as I wanted to be fired, seeing the company in real trouble, seeing this powerful, unshakable woman look tired and cornered, it made me feel a little bad. Fine, I'll help her one last time. After this, I'm done. I'm going full hermit. The world could be ending, and I wouldn't lift a finger. I quietly pulled out my phone. I didn't know anything about stock trading. I had no inside information. I only had my curse. My plan was simple. Do the stupidest, most illogical thing I could think of. I opened my brokerage app. I had about $100,000 in it, my entire savings from the past few months. I looked at the jagged roller coaster line of Vance Capital's stock price and took a deep breath. The consensus in the room was that Apex would keep driving the price up to create a bubble, lure in smaller investors, and then dump all their shares at the peak, crashing the stock and seizing control. The logical move was to buy, ride the wave up, and sell before the crash. So I would do the opposite. I was going to short the stock. When everyone was betting on it to go up, I was going to bet my entire life savings on my own company's stock crashing and burning. It was an act of supreme stupidity and betrayal. I closed my eyes and tapped the screen. All in. 10-to-1 leverage. Short Vance Capital. Confirmed. Done. My $100,000 would probably be gone in the next 60 seconds. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that my curse would activate. My idiotic action would trigger a correct outcome. What that outcome would be, I had no idea, and I didn't care. I put my phone away, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. I'd done my part. The rest was up to fate. The boardroom was still deathly quiet. Suddenly, one of the financial analysts leaped to his feet, pointing at a monitor, his voice cracking. It's maxed out. Ms. Vance, our stock just hit the circuit breaker. It's gone limit up. What? Everyone, including Catherine, was stunned. She rushed over to the screen, staring at the thick green line rocketing toward the ceiling, her face a mask of disbelief. What happened? I thought Apex was dumping their shares. They were. The analyst was practically shouting with excitement. But just moments ago, a massive anonymous buy order appeared out of nowhere. They bought up every single share Apex was selling at the maximum price. Apex is trapped. Their attack, it was completely absorbed by this mystery buyer. A mystery buyer? Find out who it is. Now, Catherine commanded. A few minutes later, the news came. Ms. Vance, we've traced it. It's a fund managed by Berkshire Hathaway. What? Now, even Catherine couldn't maintain her composure. Warren Buffett? Why on earth would he suddenly intervene to save Vance Capital? It made no sense. Just then, Catherine's private cell phone rang. It was an international number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. An elderly but strong voice, speaking English, came through the line. Catherine's expression went from confusion to shock to utter bewilderment. When she hung up, she seemed to be in a daze. She slowly walked back to her seat. Everyone watched her, holding their breath. Ms. Vance, was that Mr. Buffett? Catherine nodded, then shook her head. She took a deep breath and spoke as if in a dream. He said he acted on a directive from his teacher. His teacher? Warren Buffett's teacher. The executives looked at each other, confused. Everyone knew his mentor, Benjamin Graham, had passed away decades ago. Catherine's gaze drifted slowly across the room, past everyone, and settled on the man slouched in the corner, eyes closed. Her voice was as soft as a whisper. He said, his teacher's screen name is an impossible task. A bomb went off in my head. I don't remember how I got out of that boardroom. I just remember the feeling of dozens of pairs of eyes boring into my back. Warren Buffett's teacher? Me. Because of some stupid forum post I made in college. Could this world possibly get any more absurd? I stumbled back to my office in a fog, shut the door, and collapsed into my chair. I thought I was going to lose my mind. Had my curse become so powerful it could now manipulate the global financial markets? I just wanted to lose $100,000 and get kicked out on my ass. How did it come to this? A few moments later, my office door opened. It was Catherine. She came in and locked the door behind her. She stood in front of me, silent, just looking at me with an incredibly complex expression. It was a mix of shock, curiosity, and even a little defeat. We just stared at each other. The silence was deafening. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Okay, I said, holding up my hands in surrender. I confess. I'll tell you everything. I'm not some secret genius. I'm not a prodigy. I'm a complete and utter fraud. A slacker who just wants a simple life. I have this condition, this curse. The harder I try to do something right, the more I screw it up. And the more I try to fail, the more I try to be an idiot, the better things turn out. The report, the school in West Virginia, the Singularity acquisition, and what happened today. It was all the same. I shorted our stock because I wanted to lose all my money to show you how stupid and disloyal I was, so you would finally fire me. I spilled out my entire secret in one long, breathless rush. I felt completely drained. It was all out there now. My last card had been played. To a smart, logical, data-driven woman like her, my explanation would sound like the ravings of a lunatic. She would think I was mocking her, insulting her intelligence in the most elaborate way possible. Then, she would fly into a rage and throw me out. A perfect ending. I closed my eyes, bracing for the verdict. But the explosion I was expecting never came. Instead, I heard a soft, quiet sigh. I opened my eyes. Catherine had walked over to my desk. She picked up the little star I had folded from the candy wrapper, holding it in her palm. "So," she said softly, "all this time, you really did want to be fired?" "Yes," I said, nodding emphatically. "And every brilliant decision you made was just you trying to self-destruct?" 100%. She was silent for a long time. Then, her shoulders started to shake. And then I heard the most incredible sound I had ever heard in my life. She was laughing, not a smirk or a cold chuckle. It was a genuine, uncontrollable peal of laughter. She laughed so hard she bent over, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. The Ice Queen, in that moment, completely melted. I stared at her, dumbfounded. It was the first time I had ever seen her laugh. I never knew she could look like that. It was beautiful. After a while, she straightened up, wiping a tear from her eye. She looked at me, her bright eyes still dancing with amusement. "Jack, do you know my entire life has been a plan? Everything has been a blueprint, every step calculated to perfection. I believe that everything in this world could be explained by logic and data, and then I met you. You're a bug in the system, a beautiful, chaotic, inexplicable bug that I can't predict, can't control, and can't understand." She walked toward me, leaned down, and placed her hands on the arms of my chair, trapping me in the space her presence created. She was so close I could see the individual strands of her long eyelashes, the tiny constellations reflected in her eyes. "Jack!" Her voice, for the first time, was soft. "I admit it. I lose. I lose to your illogical, ridiculous curse. So I've decided." She paused, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. "To stop being logical." And in the next second, a soft, cool, fragrant kiss landed on my lips. I froze. Again. The kiss was light and brief, a ghost of touch. But the impact on me was like a Category 5 hurricane. My brain crashed. All thought turned to mush. Catherine straightened up, a smirk on her face as she looked at my stunned expression. "So," she asked, "do you still want me fired?" I shook my head, then nodded frantically. "Yes, of course I do. What does that have to do with any of this?" "Too bad. You can't leave," she said, smoothing down her shirt, reverting to her cool CEO persona, though the amusement in her eyes was impossible to hide. "Why not?" I blurted out. "Because," she said, walking to the door and pulling it open. She glanced back at me. "From now on, winning you over is my most important KPI for the next decade. And I, Catherine Vance, never failed to deliver on a project." She walked out, leaving me completely and utterly lost in the storm. 3 days later, Vance Capital's stock, blessed by the Warren Buffett's teacher effect, had skyrocketed, doubling the company's market cap. Apex Investors was in ruins, and I, Jack Anderson, was still the chief special advisor. Except now, I had a new duty, having lunch with the CEO every day. My office had also acquired a few new items. A high-end tea set that Catherine had apparently won at an auction. A massive bookshelf filled with books I couldn't understand. And a cat tree. That afternoon, I was in the middle of a game when Catherine walked in. She was holding a fluffy, all-white ragdoll cat. The cat had big, sapphire blue eyes and was looking at me curiously. "His name is Slacker," Catherine said, placing the cat on the floor. "He's yours now." I watched the cat gracefully make its way to the cat tree, then looked back at Catherine, my mind struggling to keep up. "Ms. Vance, what is this?" "He fits your vibe," she said simply. "Also, company policy forbids office romances." I blinked. So, until you officially become my boyfriend, you need a chaperone." She pointed at the cat. "He'll be my spy to make sure you don't get any ideas about getting fired." I looked at the cat, who was already curled up on the cat tree, purring loudly. I wanted to cry. Now, even a cat was conspiring against my dream? "All right," Catherine said, as if suddenly remembering something. She took an object out of her pocket, and placed it on my desk. It was a shiny little star, folded from a candy wrapper, identical to the one I had made. "A gift for a gift," she said, and turned to leave. "Wait," I called out. She turned back. I looked at her, and with all the courage I could muster, I asked the question that had been bothering me for weeks. "Why? Why did you really come to Blackwater Creek that day? Kevin's letter was just an excuse, right?" Catherine looked at me and was silent for a moment. The setting sun streamed through the window behind her, making her silhouette glow. "Because the night before, I had a dream. I dreamt that you were standing on the edge of a cliff, and you were about to fall. And then I woke up, and then I booked the first flight out." Without giving me a chance to ask more, she turned and left. I sat in my chair, holding the little paper star, not moving for a long time. Outside my window, the city lights began to twinkle on. In my office, the cat named Slacker purred contentedly. I looked at my life. Maybe being an accidental god wasn't so bad after all. Maybe. 1 year later, the Vance Capital annual gala. As the CEO's +1, I was seated at the head table. After a few drinks, Dave, his face flushed, tried to drag me on stage to perform. I refused. Absolutely not. If I actually tried to do something, the entire hotel might collapse. In the struggle, my phone slipped out of my pocket and clattered to the floor. The screen lit up, displaying my wallpaper, a photo of Catherine and me at the beach. In the picture, she was laughing like a kid. The entire ballroom went silent. All eyes were on that tiny, glowing screen. Suddenly, a small voice cut through the silence. It was Kevin Price, who had long since been demoted to the logistics department. He pointed at my phone as if he'd just discovered the meaning of life, his voice trembling as he shouted, "I get it. I finally get it. Jack Anderson. He's not a genius. He did it all to get the girl.